Have you heard about some of this madness coming from the New York Jets?
I have. And boy, let me tell you, if you want to give your kid a legacy, just name him Brick.
Yeah. So I want to. Woody Johnson is 70-something years old, the owner of the Jets. And I had heard or read things about him taking too much input from his son, and his son's name was Brick. But what I didn't realize about Brick when people were saying this, Brick is 18 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this. Brick is 18 years old, and apparently the general manager, Joe Douglas, that they fired, has told people, quote, "I answered to a teenager." And I mean, of course, that would be terrible. But this is a passage from this story from The Athletic about Brick. It says, quote, "The Jets were thinking about trading for Jerry Jeudy, and they did not trade for Jerry Jeudy. And you're wondering why. Why did they not trade for Jerry Jeudy? Here we go. Johnson, who declined the Athletics' request for comment, soured on his franchise quarterback less than a year after betting big on him, denigrated his own players in the locker room, and seemed to follow decision-making advice from his teenage sons. And the proposed Jeudy trade wasn't the only time that Johnson cited Madden ratings when evaluating players. That's because they did not make a trade for Jerry Jeudy because his Madden rating wasn't that high."
So if you're ever worried about whether you can do something, I need you to know Woody Johnson has run an NFL franchise for over 2 decades at this point. Did he run it well? No, but he did it. Has it been the worst franchise in the NFL thanks to the retirement of Daniel Snyder and the sale of the franchise? Yeah, he's the worst. So remember, if you're going, should I do that thing? Yeah, man, Woody Johnson's out here breathing, living. Whole frontal cortex just AWOL, gone. Those frontal lobes dried up like an old apricot.
Did we tell you what Joel realized when we were talking about Woody Johnson on the show a couple weeks ago? He looks it up and he goes, "Did you know that he went to Arizona?"
Did you look at where he went before? Do you know what family he comes from?
Then
I need you to go. If you are the scion of the Johnson & Johnson fortune, that Johnson & Johnson, and you go to Millbrook, and then you go to the University of Arizona, something happened in between.
I didn't know about the Millbrook stop.
No, I went to a nice, expensive private school, and then said, "Hey, what Ivy League do you want to go to, son? Or perhaps Oxford or Cambridge? We have letters and strings we can pull to get you into all of these." And bro said, "Nah, Tucson. That's the story. That's amazing."
So what happened here?
Penn said no. Dartmouth said no. The Ivies where you might bounce in, right? They said no. And then you said, well, maybe I'll go to a public Ivy. Nah, I'm going to the University of Arizona.
Not even Arizona State, by the way. Which at least sounds like more fun.
No, you went out to the moon. You went out to Tucson, which I love. To full disclosure, I vacated in Tucson, outside Tucson, at a dude ranch once. It was lovely, and I would go again. But the idea that is where the Johnson & Johnson scion ended up is wild. Do you also know that the Johnson family has been completely out of pocket for a very, very long time? That includes all the way back to 1986. And you're going, where am I going with this? Were you reading this just before you went on the air when you should have been doing work? Yes, I was, because I looked up the original Johnson & Johnson trust and the fight over that, because the senior Johnson, J. Seward Johnson, described here as a dapper playboy. Okay, this is a second gen, because remember, Woody's like a second generation Failson, because his dad was the first generation Failson.
Right, because he's Robert Wood Johnson the fourth.
That is correct. So if you want to know how deep he is in the Failson game, don't start. You can't compete. His brain has never been asked to do anything. He's never had to do anything. Do you want to know what you're like in life? You run the Jets like you run the Jets. That's how you go. You go, man, surely this man was ever asked to do anything. No, he's never had to do anything. See, I went from Millbrook to the University of Arizona. That's why he is by the way, all six of J. Seward Johnson Jr. Remember, this is grandfather, I believe, is all six of them contested the will because J. Seward Johnson married his third wife and changed the will 40 days before he died. 40 days. And I want you to know, all of the people called in this trial overlooking it were on the two secretaries of state, a former national security advisor, his foot doctor, a Rockefeller, a Rothschild, a Roosevelt, Gregory Peck, the Chief Justice of the United States, Warren Burger, former president of Italy, Amintore Fanfani, and Barbara Sinatra, who borrowed a rug from wife number 3 once. That's what we're talking about. That's what he was born into, right?
Who borrowed a rug?
Borrowed a rug. And by the way, the only one of the kids who got out of this was the one who decided to be a sculptor and just said, "Yeah, fuck all y'all," right? And just sort of bugged out. And when he was asked about how this entire legal brouhaha was going to sort out, this is what he said. And man, I want you to know, it's a lot of contempt for the rich. But if you end up rich, be this guy. This is how you do it. When asked by the Washington Post, he didn't have to say anything, right? Average boring rich person would be like, no comment. No comment. I'm not going to say anything. This is what the guy who was a sculptor who grew up in it and knew it was a joke and knew he didn't deserve the money, right? This is what he said. Well, it's going to blow high, wide, and handsome, and it's going to be a Lulu. It's going to be a Lulu. That's where Woody's coming from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew we would wind up in such amazing places?
When you see that man open a door successfully, clap.
Yes.
Because he didn't have to do that.
By the way, Barbara Sinatra, for those of you who don't know, was Frank Sinatra's fourth and last wife. And I pulled this up, and I did not realize this about her. She married Frank Sinatra in 1976. Her previous marriage ended in 1973, and she was married to Zeppo Marx. She went from a Marx brother to Frank Sinatra. Let us also not forget that Mia Farrow went from Frank Sinatra to Woody Allen, which is to say, maybe Frank Sinatra's a little funnier than we thought. Right?
I mean, yeah, he's got to be pretty. Listen, he hung out with Don Rickles. Yes. Don Rickles was like, "You hang out with the mob and you're a terrible person." And Frank was like, "That guy's funny."
Yes, he was.
That's amazing.
Yes, he was. Now, but Frank Sinatra, like, you used to be with a Marx brother, and now you out here kicking it with Frank Sinatra. Or you dealt with Frank Sinatra for so long that you were like, you know what? I need something completely different. I'm going to Woody Allen. Like, these are variations of the future Russell Wilson. Like,
exactly.
Move.
Yeah.
Not the same, but they're in the same. Like, when you do the larger study, each of these has different headings.
Hey, if you doubt that he's funny, go and look at the Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra hamburger recipes. They're really good. Because Dean's suggests that you get pound of ground beef heated in a hot skillet, right? He also suggests that you have 2 ounces of bourbon chilled. It's listed in the ingredients, right? You mix it, medium high heat, 4 minutes on a side, serve it on a TV tray. Signed, Dean Martin. Then the next letter is Frank Sinatra, and his instructions on how to make a hamburger were this: call for Dino, tell him to make you a fucking burger, drink his bourbon. 3 steps.
Well done. The NBA is in full swing, and the NFL playoffs are right around the corner, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on PrizePicks. You can make a PrizePicks lineup between the NFL and the NBA in as little as 60 seconds. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.